Welcome to the show. My name is Dean. Fuck the intro. Really happy today because I microdosed. Everybody should be. Everybody should do it. Everybody should look into mushrooms as a therapy. Big proponent of it. My journey started, and this podcast is brought to you by my friends on my journey, Moment Mushrooms. That's the incredible resource. Go to momentmushrooms.com if you're looking to microdose, macrodose, or understand yourself, or read studies or testimonials from other people who have integrated microdosing into their life for wellness, PTSD, depression, anxiety. A lot of this stuff's drug resistant now. Our minds are very strong. So what I would encourage everybody to do is learn about the healing magic of mushrooms. Dailymushroom.co, as well as a sponsor of the show. Our friends at Daily Mushroom, the #1 newsletter when it comes to mushrooms, magic mushrooms. Go there today. Check them out as well. And their companion piece, of course, our friends over at Moment Mushrooms. If you're looking for testimonials, if you're looking for ideas, transformative stories, studies, if you're looking for product, if you're looking to understand it, always include a health professional when you do this. Always talk to your doctor first. But man, it's coming. It's coming. Solutions when it comes to your wellness. Live in fungus. Who'd have thought it, huh? The world's most perfect organism. Been around since the start of time. Will be the only thing that exists at the end of time. It has perfected the art of connectivity. That's what mushrooms do. I'm a big fan. Changed my life, changed my perspective. They give me the ability to stay on top of things, to not add negative perceptions to things. I love the industry, and these are my partners that I ride with, momentmushrooms.com. Again, you can go to dailymushroom.co and check it out as well. Well. With an open mind, what I like to do, there you go. You like that? I tied in the sponsor and their product with an open mind. What I like to do is tag people in who are much smarter than me. Not hard to do. Max Fawcett is one of those guys. I trust him. Max is an incredible journalist. He is the lead columnist for Canada's National Observer out in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And of course, the premier of Alberta is on a full-on conspiracy heater. Chemtrails and the World Economic Forum and all that bullshit. She's crazy. She literally eats ivermectin. Her name is Danielle Smith. So I wanted to check in with him, see how embarrassed he was this week as she continues to ruin that beautiful province. We also wanted to talk about family. We wanted to talk about his family. We wanted to talk about a family living in Alberta. And we got into the Angus Reid stuff. If you remember, last week, Angus Reid, maybe the best pollster this country has ever seen, gold standard for polling over the past 20 years, literally lit his entire career and reputation on fire, retweeting some video that was heavily doctored, Russian disinformation, if you want to call it, and then did the old my bad. Oh, I didn't know that. And then he got angry and called everybody truanons and then said residential school genocide didn't exist. So I wanted to break all this stuff down and to have a decent conversation with a wonderful individual like Max. Is a lot of fun. So please, friends, enjoy Dean, Max, talking about Berta, Angus Reid, disinformation, and you. Enjoy. No edit.
Works for me.
Yeah, works for me too. Nice to see you. How you been?
Me too. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good. Weather's here. Weather's good. Kids are good. Family's good.
How many kids do you have? Do you have two kids? One?
Just one.
Just one
Yeah.
little fella. Is he 2, 3?
He just turned 3. Yeah.
I was in the ballpark.
Yeah, you were close. Yeah, no, he's full of mischief, full of like defiance, which is really interesting to deal with. But yeah, he's also hilarious. So
does he get it from you? Does he get the defiance from Max?
No, he gets full helpings from his mother and his father. We are both very defiant people. So
stubborn. Yeah. Good for you. No more? You just want one, huh?
One and done.
JD Vance would fucking hate you.
Oh, I know. I'm the poster boy for what would they call me? Like cuck woke liberalism. You know?
Yep. You wouldn't even get wouldn't be allowed to have any tax deductible receipts for anything if you only had one kid in JD Vance's world. Just so you know.
I mean, not only do I let my wife work, I let our child have her last name. So that would drive them over the edge.
Did you really?
Yep.
That's so hyphenated? Did you hyphenate the name?
No, it's just her name.
Just her name? Good for you.
You know, she did all the work. And my perspective is there's a non-zero chance I will blow myself up at some point. And I don't want him having to wear that name around, you know.
Oh, it was preemptive. You're like, hey, listen, I got a big mouth, and sometimes I cannot stop. So let's just give him the mother's name out of protectionism.
Yeah, let's just get ahead of any potential reputational risk here.
Well, you're in Alberta. How are things there before we get to Angus Reid, mainstream media, and Russian disinformation? because you're a hotbed of activity out there right now.
Well,
You have something going on, and I'm not too sure what it is, but every time I open up Twitter, you guys are not you,
Yep,
Danielle
Berta.
Smith, you see the Berta, the Burtons,
Yep.
they're coming down hard on trans rights, or they're talking about chemtrails making everybody gay, or mind control chemtrails. So how you dealing? How you dealing, dude?
I try to block out the crazy noise. I think watching this stuff about hurricanes and how apparently the government has a weapon that can shoot hurricanes in Florida. Like, I think we need to make peace with the fact that there's like about 25% of the population that has just lost their minds. Like, they're not with us anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that percentage is a little higher here in Alberta. Wait, are we recording right now?
Oh yeah.
Oh goodness. Okay, sorry.
I thought we're on it. No, you don't have to worry about it. Yeah.
All right.
We're recording. You're on it. This is what I want. I wanted a conversation, which is why I didn't tell you. So I kind of hijacked you off the start.
Right.
Yeah, you're doing great.
It's all good. It's just it's a lot because people here, like in other parts of the country, our healthcare system is collapsing. Cost of living is a really big problem, and it's not a big problem because of what Ottawa is doing. It's a big problem because like our car insurance keeps going up, house insurance keeps going up. It's a lot of things the provincial government could be working on, but instead they're picking these weird ideological fights about trans rights. They're trying to jam up trans kids and use that as a wedge issue, and it's all because she has her leadership review vote in November and needs to keep the members of her party who are, very far to the right, very rural, very online. She needs to keep them happy. They were very unhappy that, for example, the Coots Five, or the gentlemen who, were fomenting violence against RCMP officers, that they were convicted. A lot of her supporters are very unhappy that she didn't intervene there. And so she's really trying to balance this tiny radical group that wields disproportionate amounts of power with the rest of us, and the rest of us are kind of getting the short end of the stick.
Religious backers, religious donors, oil and gas, that group, that whole crew, UCP, the Take Back Alberta folks, our boy David Parker, that whole hardcore group of people who like to tell you that, hey, listen, we got to fight against trans kids. And by the way, we're going to have a symposium for Bitcoin and precious metals tomorrow. Everybody needs to attend. That group?
Yeah, I mean, they're getting everything they could ever have dreamed of. They have a government that caters to their every possible whim. One of the things that I think they were frustrated about with Jason Kenney was he would occasionally call bullshit on them, and say to them like, well, no, that's too far, that's too crazy. And he would bring in public health regulations during pandemics, things like that, and they have made it abundantly clear that they will not tolerate a leader who will do that. And so this is why Danielle Smith came out and released a video saying that she's going to bring forward amendments to the Alberta Bill of Rights, which will
right to bear arms. I thought that was great. Right? You're going to have an uphill battle there.
Yeah, I mean, right to bear arms, right to not get vaccinated, which, by the way, is a right people already have. Yeah. No one was forcibly vaccinated. That's not a thing. But she is pandering to this group of people that really feel like what's missing in their lives is more American-style constitutional rights, and a lot of them are Alberta separatists, right? So in a lot of ways, this is laying the groundwork for their vision of an independent state. And of course, inevitably, when she passes this bill, and if it ever gets into the courts, it'll get struck down because it's unconstitutional. There's nothing that a province can do that supersedes federal constitutional jurisdiction on things that where it has the law of the land, and then she'll just use that to get these people angry again, right? Ottawa's screwing us over again. They're not letting you possess high-powered semi-automatic rifles, or they're not listening to us on your right to not get vaccinated, which again you have that right now.
Yeah.
It's just all this kind of circular jerk where they're just trying to keep people angry, get them angry, maintain their anger, harvest their anger, and then get them angry again.
Get them angry. You see, when an angry person's angry, right? They're angry about something that touches them, or they're angry about a personal issue. It's the self-importance that goes into emotionally tagging somebody. Then they're not going to talk about how they pay 5 times more for insurance on a vehicle that they do against everybody else. They're not going to talk about 10,000 orphan wells. You're not going to talk about ERs.
Way more than 10,000.
Oh, is it a couple 100,000?
Yeah. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in costs that the public is going to have to bear. And yeah,
you're not going to talk about ERs that don't exist in small towns where that's the only thing that fucking small town has. Healthcare, cost of living, insurance, all of it. Fuck, dude, the city of Calgary didn't have water for the fucking spring.
Like family doctors who are all leaving. I think there was a survey out that said more than half are making plans to leave the province, and I think a third of them have already started actively taking steps in that direction. Because of course, why would you want to practice healthcare in a province where the government is going to war with you, is undermining support for public health, is undermining support for vaccines? Like doctors and nurses have a lot of options. They can go anywhere they want, and they're always in demand. Why would they stay here? But yeah, people are angry about Trudeau or the federal government. They don't have time to focus on that stuff. What really bothers me about the chemtrail thing, where someone
can we just lay that out just real quick? So the premier of the province was asked at a town hall. They're like, tell us about these chemtrails. They're spraying the shit in the sky, and she's like, there's a lady that's in charge of outer space who said that it's not happening, but if it is happening, it's the U.S. government that's spraying mind control, gay turning chemtrails over the least educated parts of the province. That blew me away. That wasn't just a national story either, dude. That's the leader of the province of Alberta who's like, you know what? Maybe the U.S. government's doing their mind control stuff here. I don't know. Like, that blew my fucking mind. It should have been disqualifying.
It should have been. Yeah, you would think, but this is who she is. She is an open line radio host who is now the premier of a province and still acts like it's her job to humor people when they offer incredibly crazy ideas or suggestions. And like, there was a way to deal with that question that didn't humiliate the person, although I would have, if it had been me, I would have chosen to humiliate them. But there's a way to do it, which is to say, well, I appreciate the question, and I'll take that back to our staff and we'll look into it, or something like that, and move on. But she fed the conspiracy. She fed the delusion by offering a new theory, like, oh, well, maybe it's the American Department of Defense. That's what I heard. And then then you have to get a clarification from the Pentagon, from the American State Department.
That was the best, by the way. When the Pentagon's like, hey, you might want to ask her what the fuck she's talking about. I was like, oh, they think she's crackers too.
And it's that's not great for Alberta. But the irony here is she's not hurting me. She's not hurting people who, understand science and don't believe conspiracy theories. She's hurting her own supporters because she allows them to fill their heads with this nonsense. She validates it. And then they take that back into their community and they become more removed from the general public, more removed from reality. And what are the consequences of that? We see it in Florida right now, where you have people who are not listening to government officials, not evacuating in the face of this giant hurricane, because they're in the fever swamps of conspiracy theories. They think, that the government's coming for precious minerals, or it's a hoax, or it's it's
always a hoax.
The Democrats who are sending hurricanes our way. And like, these people, there are people who are going to die because they have been fed bullshit, right?
So let me ask you a question then. Do you guys have totally different fucking news outlets out there? Do you have like a different news cycle, news system? Is every single news outlet, mainstream media outlet in the province of Alberta, do they cater to the people of, like, just the dumbest people of Alberta? Or do you just have a dumb person problem in Alberta that is being exacerbated by the premier of the province being equally as stupid as the people that she's targeting? Because I mean, I've really tried to stay away from generalizing Albertans as stupid. I really have, because I lived there for a long time, went to the University of Calgary. I love Alberta. I have friends and family in Alberta who are very bright people, but I want to know where that fulcrum sits. Are those people just being targeted? Are you all being targeted with really shitty information, or do you just have really extra stupid people that live in the province of Alberta?
So I don't think it's a dumb person problem. I think we have the same proportion of people who don't understand the way the world works, don't listen to reason, don't understand science. No matter where you are in this country. I think the problem is we have a political system in Alberta that gives them far more power than in BC or in Ontario or in Quebec. We right now have a province where the premier is actively catering to the dumbest and most conspiratorial among us, because if she doesn't, they will vote her out as leader and they will replace her with someone that they decide suits their beliefs. That's not the case in Ontario. It's not the case in BC, because there, it really is the cities that drive the political bus. Here, it's because of the way the electoral map is distributed. Just because of the nature of our politics, it's rural parts of the province that really punch above their weight.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem. As to the media side of it, I have nothing but respect for, Post media is in shambles no matter where you are in this country. I mean, there was a story that came out today that they're serving up ads to people that are claiming that Jagmeet Singh was killed. It's that Mary Berg stuff where it's the hysterical clickbait stuff. Post media should not be taking that money, but they do. The CBC here is fantastic. The CBC bureau in Calgary and Edmonton, I think, are the two best bureaus in the country. Yeah. Just in terms of their size relative to the amount of work they do. The problem is, and we are kind of a sneak preview of what Canada will be like under Pierre Poilievre. The alt-right media outlets, Rebel Media, True North, what have you, the Kean Bexty's operation, whatever it's called. I think it's called the Counter Signal.
It is. COVID Caillou, by the way. COVID Caillou. That's how he's known.
COVID Caillou. All right. Yeah. They control, or they serve, a disproportionately large portion of the market here compared to Ontario, compared to BC. And it shows up in the way people think about things. It shows up in their response to pandemics and climate change. And so this is a sneak preview of what it will be like when, the CBC has been completely disassembled, when mainstream media, no longer is in the business of actually trying to report the truth. And instead we have these audience captured silos where people are told what they want to hear. It's not good. It will not be, and it's not good for people's health. It's not good for their economic well-being, their personal well-being. It leads to a very dark and bad place.
Yeah. Well, it manifests itself even across Canada. You talk about Alberta in a microcosm, and I agree with you. Under a Pierre Poilievre government, and you and I both worked in media for a long period of time. You still work in media. I don't really, but do a little bit. You see the intersection of, and it played out this week for Angus Reid. You see the intersection of polling. When I look at polling in Alberta and I see Mayor Nenshi behind Danielle Smith, knowing how fucking insane your province is right now, it blows my mind. I find it hard to believe, knowing who she's super serving, that tiny demographic. And the same thing when it comes to national polling. I see the rhetoric. We all see the rhetoric. We hear the rhetoric. Pierre Poilievre doesn't have a plan. Yet somehow he's managed to scoot out to a 20-point lead. These are polls that are delivering that information. Well, this week, Angus Reid stepped in it and basically opened the door to questioning the veracity and the credibility of the intersection of polling, media, and politics. And I wanted to talk about that because it's a fucking super boring subject, right? By the way, polling is like, I never thought I'd be, Max Fawcett, National Observer, let's have a whole conversation about fucking polling. I hate it. I never thought I'd find myself in a Donnybrook with Angus Reid, I just thought Angus Reid was a brand until I found out there was a person behind it named Angus Reid. Legitimately. That's how little I pay attention to polling. So I need you to kind of educate me today, because Angus Reid deleted his account after putting up some pretty fucking horrific disinformation that feeds into the disinformation atmosphere, which was outlined by the DOJ, which was outlined in the NSICOP report. And this man is the gold standard for 40 years when it comes to polling in this country. A gentleman named Alex Zoltan, amazing Zoltan, who is confirmed an influencer for foreign governments, operating here in British Columbia. Trudeau, a mosque was vandalized and we call out Islamophobia, an unacceptable chance we get. Also, Trudeau burning down a Catholic church is fully understandable. Not only did he not say that, the video in which he used to justify that statement was heavily edited from a previous video, but that didn't stop Angus Reid, who gets paid to be accurate, by the way. Data's truth, by and large. You can bank on it. This is what he gets paid for. He retweets this, says shame on Trudeau, completely unacceptable for the PM to legitimize a church burning. And then he followed that up with like maybe one of the dumber things that I've ever seen. And this is your tweet. He still doesn't understand which is wrong. Where he said he called everybody a bunch of truanons and questioned whether or not dead children were really buried in residential schools. Like he legitimately questioned it, which sits perfectly in the conspiracy theory, Russian talking points of marginalizing the residential school issue, putting out disinformation that is heavily doctored to curate some type of authoritative, and he is an authoritative polling dude. Like, he is it in this country and has been for a very fucking long time. I want your take on this because it kind of speaks to what people believe. Like, we're talking about Alberta as a microcosm. On a national scale, this man was dragged and got rid of his account. We'll get to some of the fallout of it. He hates me, by the way. I'll get to the DM that he sent me, but I want your thoughts on that because this really fits in. It's like a nice little keyhole example on a grander scale of what we have to deal with and what you guys are dealing with and what might become acceptable under a Pierre Poilievre government.
Yeah, it's a mess, and I suspect, if there's a Discord channel or a Slack of all the other pollsters, they were just rending their garments about what he did there, because this is a guy who, like you said, his name is synonymous with polling. I grew up in Vancouver, in BC, Angus Reid, which is where he got his start. Like, he's the brand, he's the guy, and he destroyed his credibility, all that credibility he had built up over the years, with basically a bad day on the internet. And I think it speaks to the fact that if you're in a position like that, in a business like that, you have to be very careful about how you interact with information. Because if you interact the way he did, which is basically like a Facebook addled grandparent, then you are going to undermine your entire reputation, the legitimacy of the work you do. And I want to be very clear about this. The work that pollsters do in this country is not the problem. I've heard from a lot of folks on the left that, wow, this just proves that the polls are all cooked and they're all involved in it together. Or,
it's rabid, right? Because everybody wants to take every poll that they don't agree with, that doesn't support their guy or said something bad about their guy, doesn't say enough bad things about the other person's guy. They want to go, you got paid for this. But dude opened up the fucking door to say, dude, what are you doing? And who's paying you to say that?
Well, and that's, in my newsletter this week, that's what I wrote about. I said, look, this is bad for trust. This is bad for trust in institutions. This is bad for trust in information. And that hurts all of us in the end. I suspect it will hurt his institute the most, but it hurts all of us. And so I don't like it when I see progressives out there saying, wow, then all the polls are bullshit. He's not behind 20 points. It's clearly the conservatives weaponizing this. And look, there is definitely the possibility that one poll or one pollster, even, you see this in the United States, is biased. That is a thing. When all of the pollsters in this country, including Frank Graves, your friend, a guy I really like,
love him,
who is clearly not on the right, clearly does not love Poilievre, when all of their polls are saying the exact same thing, which is that Trudeau is fucked, you kind of have to listen to that verdict. That
good
verdict.
Result. Yeah.
This is why people who really study this stuff rely on what are called polling averages, which is you don't treat any one poll as the gospel truth. You mash them all together and see what they say in the aggregate, and that gives you a better picture of what is actually happening. And look, the poll aggregates are saying it loud and clear. Trudeau is unpopular. The Liberals are behind by double digits. You have to make peace with that reality and work from that position, not sort of go down these conspiratorial rabbit holes of, well, it's all a conspiracy, or it's all a bullshit campaign to hoodwink us. It's not, right?
Yeah, but there's a bunch of gray there too, though. And I agree with you. I said that in my response to these people this week. Is like, hey, listen, all the data is basically the same. The spin that you get from the data is very different.
Sure.
From people. That's the purpose of polling. But I want to dig into what polling is. Who are Angus Reid's clients? Who are Ecosys clients? Like industry. I don't want specifics, but who are top flight clients of polling companies like this?
Anyone who wants to make a decision that would impact the public or be influenced by the public. So could be retailers, could be the oil and gas industry trying to formulate a strategy for outreach. It could be a construction association. It could be a political party. It could be there's public opinion has value for anyone who's making a decision that will be impacted by it, right?
Yeah, public opinion has value, but I guess my question is, if political parties are using these polling companies, media companies, which, by the way, is incredibly eerily silent in mainstream media of the demise of Angus Reid's reputation and career. Like, nobody's fucking touched it. And someone
I wrote about it.
Yeah, you wrote about it. I know you wrote about it because you have courage.
But it's a fair point that there's not a story in the Globe, there's not a story in the National Post, and there should be. It is.
Why isn't there? Are they clients?
No, I don't think it's clients. I think, one of the challenges with Canada, the media environment, is we're all a little too close to each other. It's all a little too chummy. Canada is, in a lot of respects, a small village of people who are, in business, in the media, in politics, and they all know each other. They know somebody who knows each other. And so they're always reluctant to go after someone when they make a mistake like this. And the United States is completely different. Britain is completely different. Their media culture is much more aggressive, much more adversarial. And if someone makes a mistake, they'll cover it.
They'll cut throats in the United States. Like, there's no protectionist media in the United States or Canada. It's like, hey, if we can drive clicks, if we can make some money, we'll put this fucking story out. We don't care if our best friend over there gets sewered by it, right? Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you the number of stories when I used to work in Ottawa that were common knowledge that probably should have been reported out, but that just didn't get reported out because it wasn't the done thing, right? You don't report on someone's personal life, or you don't report on X, Y, Z. And it's just this very kind of small country syndrome, for lack of a better term. And I think that's why it hasn't been covered. I'm sure there are some justifications internally at those publications. It's just someone had a bad day on Twitter. Twitter isn't news. I don't think that's true, but I think that is the justification. And it doesn't help people's trust levels, I don't think, in these institutions, in polling, in public opinion research. And like I said, I think we all have a vested interest in being able to trust information, even if it's information we don't like.
Yeah. I find it increasingly more difficult after this situation to trust that intersection between polling, media, and politics. And I'll tell you why. Is because, I've watched screenshots, well-sourced screenshots of, the Sask party, BC Conservatives, different political industries, not just conservatives, right? Liberal, NDP, pay polling companies for research so that they can take that research and form it into a conversation that helps them with public opinion around policy, certain situations. The newspapers that work with these gentlemen getting polling results do the same thing. And that inherently kind of poisons the entire process of you thinking, or me or you or anybody else. Like, and I'm just a layman, dude. I'm an idiot. I'm not a journalist. I'm not as educated as you. But when I look at what I've learned about polling over the past couple of days, and I'm not saying the data isn't real, because I know it is. I'm not saying they don't skew that. But didn't what we watched with Angus, and then the information that comes out about who their partners are, right? Political parties, newspapers, and you see a lack of accountability where this is concerned, right? Don't you kind of wonder what that intersection looks like? And because, dude, I know they're all human. Like, I know Frank Graves lines up on another side of this conversation completely, and I identify with that. I don't identify with anything Angus Reid said, because what Angus Reid said was pure bullshit and fiction. He put out disinformation. But that in itself told me a story. And then you think about who they work with and how they make money, and you wonder about those executive relationships in polling, media, politics. Is it not okay for people to go, are we really getting accurate information from polling companies at the moment?
To me, it is a really dangerous, slippery slope for progressives to start walking down, because it once you start approaching it with that attitude, you can make a lot of insinuations, you can make a lot of justifications that allow you to ignore the truth. Here's what I'll say. Angus Reid, for all of his bluster and bravado, he's not that involved at the day-to-day level with the institute that bears his name. Like, he's not the one doing the business deals, he's not the one setting the questions. It's just not what he does. He's a brand, he's a figurehead at this point. And I could take issue with some of the research methods that they use there, but their work is pretty darn good. It's not perfect. I mean, as Evan Scrimshaw, who I don't know if you've interviewed him or not, but he's a very perspicacious young man.
That's a great word. You know what I love about Evan Scrimshaw? I only ever read or like his stuff, or thought provoking. He has no problem cursing.
Yeah. Oh no. He's a real guy, but he understands the polling business really well. And he pointed out, like, the house effect for Angus Reid, the bias that it has is actually pro NDP in Ontario, in their polling of Ontario.
Mm.
The idea that it's this sort of unilaterally conservative shop just doesn't hold. And there is an organization called the what is it called? It's called CRIC, the Canadian Research Insights Council. So that is like an industry organization that assesses methods, ethics, standards. Like, the pollsters hold themselves, I would argue, to a higher standard than a lot of journalists do. Certainly a lot of self-described journalists. So I just don't have the same concerns that a lot of folks have. Polls will be wrong. Polls will miss. They're experimenting with new methods because it's harder and harder to reach people on phones, but they do try to give good information. And I'll tell you why. It's not worth taking a couple $1,000s from a client to juke your stats or to bend the truth, when if you get caught out for that, you're done. You're done. Your business is over, right? Your value proposition as a pollster is being a reliable source of accurate information. And that's just not worth risking.
Long term, that's the sustainability of that industry is in the reputation that you carry. So that's the question I would ask you as an outsider, someone that knows about polling, someone who knows the people involved. What's being said about the damage that Angus Reid on his own, not as a company, on his own, has done, not just to his company? Like, what I wonder what the people at Angus Reid are thinking today, but how, the damage, and I've spoken with some people in the business too, and one of the words they used were brutal. The damage that it has been done in an already toxic environment where people question expertise like this all the fucking time because they're too stupid to be able to read a chart graph.
Yeah, I think it's irreversible in a lot of respects. This is, if you have a bias against pollsters, against the work they do, if you have questions, this just validates all your concerns, right? It is, the confirmation bias will do the work here. And I think the industry will have to do a lot of spade work to repair some of the damage. I don't think they'll be able to repair all of it, but some of the damage that he's done with these comments. And like, let's be clear, because there's been folks on the right who have tried to suggest that, oh, this is, he got canceled because he said things about residential schools. First of all, he canceled himself. He didn't get canceled. But when I said, he still doesn't get what he did wrong was he shared a video of the prime minister that was deliberately and maliciously edited, and then pretended that what he had said was, it's okay to burn down schools. It's okay to burn down churches. He never said that. He was extremely clear in his remarks that it's wrong. We shouldn't do it. It actually hurts people in these communities who need churches for solace, for grieving, for comfort. He said that they were putting money into surveillance and security. And the one thing he said that really pissed off a lot of conservatives is he understands the anger at the federal government and the Catholic Church over the residential school system. How is that a bad thing? That he tried to briefly empathize with the anger over a horrific system that destroyed the lives of so many Indigenous people. That's what they're upset about. That he had that moment of empathy. And for Angus Reid not only to share misinformation, but then when he's shown the misinformation, get his back up and pretend that he's the victim. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Like,
it's childlike. To your point.
All he had to do was come out and say, look, this is on me. I tweeted before I looked. The prime minister, he clearly doesn't have these views, and it's my bad for saying that he did. I apologize. Let's move on. And that would be the end of it. But he had to dig the hole deeper.
I believe that's what I encouraged him to do in a DM. He DM'd me and he's like, I've never skewed my results. I think I actually have it. I'll show it to you before we get, let me just get to this one, your tweet, to your point. So after and I'll take people through the timeline real quick. He puts out this bullshit Russian tweet, trying to frame the prime minister as someone who's okay with churches getting burned down by Indigenous people. It was a lie. And then he went on and said, hey, I don't even believe that we haven't even found bodies at residential schools, which is like, oh my God, residential school denialism at this point. Fucking grow up. You have to be a moron to not believe that that's real. And then he comes back. So he deletes his account, and then he comes back several hours later to say, the sad reality is, so he's blaming, to your point, the victimization. X has become a cesspool of hate, bigotry, ignorance, and lies. Actually, like, you're right.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. Yeah.
But he perpetuated it. And now he's saying that he hates himself and what he did, but it's not his fault, saying, quote, my reason My recent outing, which started with a concern about church arson, morphed into me against Trudeau's Twitter Praetorian Guard, the Truanon mob. Okay. The pejorative there makes me laugh. And then he says, quote, these folks became angry when I shared my personal outrage over church burnings that reached epidemic proportions since Trudeau's photo shoot with the teddy bear up in Kamloops. Turns out we still don't know what's buried there. So he not only blames everybody, says he's the victim. It's Truanon. Don't even fucking know who those people are. Then he doubles down and he's like, by the way, there's still no dead kids. Yeah. That's like a character flaw to the most toxic, poisonous degree.
Can I be petty for a second?
Fuck yes, I love petty, Max Fawcett.
So
please.
If you're going to invoke the Praetorian Guard, which is like a very old man thing to do, at least spell it correctly. He spelled it like it was the city in South Africa, right? Like at least if you're going to use an insult, use it correctly. The stuff about he's hinging it all on the story of Kamloops, where they found some irregularities under the ground. They weren't sure what it was, and American journalists came out and said it was a mass grave, and a lot of Canadian journalists, Terry Glavin and whatnot, got their back up because that wasn't actually true. They kind of jumped the gun on it. And this has now become this sort of like wellspring for people who want to minimize the residential schools.
It's a rallying cry, right?
It's like, wow, they said there was mass grave and there's no mass grave. So what's the issue? And it's like, first of all, we still don't know like the extent of what's under there, but we definitely know that lots of Indigenous kids were buried in lots of, church graveyards and other areas near residential schools. Like that is not in dispute. Lots of them were killed. And for them to kind of make this the hill they want to die on is just incredibly puzzling to me.
I want to know how a guy that's smart, perceptually that smart, like Angus Reid, you have to be smart to own a polling company, how he wouldn't fucking check. Like how he would just, and not just check, ignore.
Yeah, I mean,
ignore. Like his job is to get data right, correct?
As you well know, smart people can also be very stubborn people and very prideful people. And in those sorts of moments, those emotions can take over. It actually takes a very emotionally intelligent person, not other intelligence, but emotional intelligence to say, "Oh, I made a mistake. I better apologize for this one. I'm in the wrong here." If you have low emotional intelligence, you just plow through. I'm the victim. I'm being bullied. It's not my fault, and that's how you end up where he ended up. But I think there's a generation of Canadians who happen to be white, who take the residential school story and the truth and reconciliation process personally in some way. Like it's, we're blaming them or we're holding them to account for it. And in some respects we are, but like, unless you were actively involved in it, just be a listener. Just go, learn how to put your ego below the top of the line, and not make it about you and not make it about how you feel, and just kind of, use your ears rather than your mouth. And I think that's the other thing that's striking here, is that this whole thing happened a couple of days after the Truth and Reconciliation Day, right? Yeah. Of all the times to step in this landmine, not now. This is not the time to do it.
Yeah, but he was mad. He was probably still mad that Truth and Reconciliation Day happened 2 days earlier, and he had to watch all of his Twitter feed and all these people saying every child matters. And in his mind, he's like, I don't believe in any of that shit. Because the other thing he did say was that the church burnings, by the way, there have been 112 of them. It is a problem, right? I'm not about to have an opinion on any church burning on residential grounds, by the way. Not one opinion on it. Zero. I think they're just fucking buildings. The church in question that we were talking about, deconsecrated, sold in 2013 because the Catholic Church had some debts to pay off when it came to priest buggery in the church. So I'm just telling you the truth. It's a sexual assault lawsuit of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of children during the couple hundred years of Catholic terror that we've seen in this country. That's what that church was. So like he didn't even understand that to begin with, which was part of it. So there's a lack of education there, but there's willing blindness too. When we're talking about something 2 days after Truth and Reconciliation, where you could tell that response came from a place of emotion, right? Negative emotion. Yeah. Where he was like, fuck you guys, fuck this. And he maintained that same fuck you attitude all the way through with complete disregard for his 40-year career being the gold standard in research and polling, which means it meant that much to him because he also added the idea that he was a staunch Catholic, which is why he's this upset.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's a
right?
tell. The thing about being a staunch Catholic, I think on some level it suggests that he doesn't accept that the Catholic Church was responsible here, or doesn't accept the extent of the responsibility. And again, that's historically ignorant, but that's his choice. I think the striking thing in all the striking things here is this won't cost him, right? Like, it'll cost his reputation, but like, he got paid already for selling his firm. He will remain as wealthy as he was before. The people who will take the hit are the ones who work at his institute, right? The people who have jobs and who work really hard to put out good information every day with their work, and they're the ones who have to wear this.
Someone that works there, their friend sent me a note, DM yesterday. They said, our guy is mortified. They are mortified there.
Yeah, and it sucks for them. And it's not fair for them. But that's the choice he made. And it sure would be nice if he would take like one tiny iota of personal responsibility here. But clearly that is not going to happen.
No, it's dyed in the wool when it comes to the victim crowd. The victim crowd's media outlet of choice, of course, Post Media, National Post, got into it yesterday with the senior editor of the National Post. No idea who this person is. But you also weighed in. Her name is Terry Newman, right? So she weighs in on the Angus Reid thing, saying, quote, to your point, it's insane he was bullied off the platform. These are adults, by the way. Yeah. These are grown-ass adults like you and me that have armpit hair, kids, jobs, they pay taxes, that kind of stuff. These are problem-solving adults. Terry Newman, the senior editor for the National Post, which is owned 66% by Chatham Asset Management, hedge fund out of the United States. They're MAGA-owned, effectively. And yes, these are MAGA secret keepers at Chatham Asset Management, David Pecker. That's the group. Anyway, just a little backstory. She said, it's insane Angus Reid was bullied off the platform by Truanons who I'd argue that up until recently he slanted. His poll questions. So she's suggesting he cooks polls in her support. In her support of this man. He slanted his poll questions and topics in favor of, these are strange days. This is a good example of how the left always eats itself. And someone else replies, Angus Reid wasn't bullied off anything. He deactivated his account, reactivated it, grabbed another burner account called Angus Reid 6, and then deactivated everything. So that's really exactly what happened. And then Terry's like, well, at one point he was deactivated. Now she's suggesting, I think, that someone else deactivated his account. Glad to see it wasn't the case. Now, because I'm on the story, I'm like, okay, I should probably weigh in and help Miss Newman out a little bit. So I said he deactivated his himself before insulting half the country for a culture war points like you just did with the Truanon stuff. But I get it. It's a post-media victim thing. Well, Miss Newman was happy to meet me, Max. She's so happy. She said, I was wondering when I'd officially get to meet the daftest person in Canada. Hello, Dean. I go, hi, Terry. I've never met you, so your value judgment doesn't matter. Nice to meet you, too. Now, this is where you can, the indignation and when you want to really get underneath someone's skin. And by the way, I don't have normal skin, so I just laughed. Terry says, quote, don't pretend to be a nice guy all of a sudden.
When have you ever done that?
I was saying that Angus Reid shouldn't have been bullied, which is the natural response those of us who are still humans have when seeing someone bullied, and you showed your true colors as expected. So as she's having a problem with bullying, she's bullying me for saying that one of her friends was bullied, who I didn't bully at all. Yeah. I just maybe pointed out his lack of self-awareness significantly. And then I said, listen, I don't pretend to be anything. Definitely not like how you'd pretend to be a legitimate news outlet. I think that hurt. You should have a personal responsibility workshop with all your snowflake writers and partners who take that sweet Chatham asset management money to create neocon outrage porn. And by the way, I wasn't looking for a fight. I was having a lovely afternoon yesterday. I just poured myself a coffee. I made some pemmican. And I was sitting down to just enjoy a nice afternoon. And this woman comes to me and I'm like, I'm going to have to help her out. So she hasn't come back since. But that you're telling me that woman is in a position of intellectual authority at one of Canada's largest print media outlets. Is that correct?
Correct. I believe she's the deputy editor of their comment section. So, second in command on all the columns and pieces that they commission and pay for. And no, it's a thing. And I think my favorite part of that whole exchange was her trying to paint herself as the champion of the bullied, right? Of the downtrodden and poorly treated on social media.
Yeah.
And so I pointed out to her, like, have you looked at how conservatives treat people on this platform? And she didn't really respond to that. And, I don't recall her writing any recent columns about trans kids, for example, being bullied. Weird that her defense of bullying only occurs when it's a wealthy older man being bullied.
Who, by the way, a client. Also a client.
Sure. But it's like, it's hypocrisy all the way down, right? And calling them on their hypocrisy never changes their mind. It doesn't even bother them.
Which is weird, because I come from an era where it's like, you get caught, you go, fuck, you got me.
Yeah.
You got me. You totally got me. It's like Angus. I said to Angus in my DM to him, I'll read it to you real quick. I'm like, dude, it'd be so much easier if you just said fucking sorry. That's all you have to do. Like, really easy. You fucked up. You made a mistake. All you have to do is say, yeah, you know what? And even to the point where I'm like, even if you don't mean it, dude, like, you don't have to mean it. But if you want to claw back some kind of reputational capital after acting like a complete fucking loser and destroying your reputation and probably destroying the reputation of your business because you're just too ham-triggered. You can't figure it out. And you spent the whole weekend regretting Truth and Reconciliation Day, and your Catholic bones were shaking to the point where you're like, oh, I'm so mad, I need to tweet something. Just fucking say sorry. Like, do you know how much easier that is in the world that we live in to go, hey, guys, you know what? Got my wires crossed. My bad. Shouldn't have put that out. Absolutely deserve all the hubris and all the bullshit that comes back my way. I will be better. This would be over. Angus would still have his Twitter account. As a matter of fact, I would go, that's a good person. But as it sits today, the only thing you have is your character and what people think of you. I don't know anybody that thinks, not knowing that man, that's a good person. And I've had conversations with people who know that man who said that is also not a good person. So, I mean, it all kind of fucking came out in the wash, didn't it? Like, we've just kind of fucking realized that Angus Reid was a dick.
A little bit. And yeah, I mean, I have had similar soundings from people who have known him in the past and said,
what's the take?
Basically, like, it was a surprise it took this long, that for him to show his true self. So that, like, that's fine. It's just weird for someone at a paper of supposed record in this country to play this sort of white knight role for a guy who doesn't need it. He bullied himself off, as we said before, and this stuff about TrueAnons, like, I understand.
What is a TrueAnon? Do you know what that is?
So they're trying to, like, lean on the whole QAnon thing and argue that, well, people who support the prime minister are just as crazy and unhinged as the people who believe in secret pedophile rings and all this other QAnon stuff. And first of all, objectively false. Second of all, like, I have dealt with some, like, very aggressively enthusiastic Trudeau supporters whenever I criticize him, whenever I write a piece about him saying he should step down.
You took it in the face over the past couple of weeks from people where you're going, hey, dude, you want to save the Liberal Party? You got to get rid of that guy. I mean, his public opinion is everybody can't stand him. Either he's been there too long or they believe the bullshit. But you're right. You're not wrong. It's Kamala Biden. It's the same fucking thing. And you get rage tweeted against, and specifically by one person who pretends they're some kind of breaking news liberal reporter.
Yeah.
Who I've had on the show from time to time, where I was like, oh man, I know that guy. Don't go after Max. You're not equipped, dude.
Yeah. But, and it's annoying at times, but there's no such thing as TrueAnon. There's just people, just as there's people who are unreasonably sort of blinkered when it comes to Poilievre, they are unreasonably blinkered when it comes to Trudeau. That's partisanship. That's politics. But for an editor at a major paper to describe people that way, and for Angus Reid to describe his critics that way, is not, I would argue, constructive or healthy. Yes, indeed, these are strange days, but not in the way that she seems to think.
Well, She certainly gave up her position, didn't she? So did Angus.
Yeah, I think we know a little more about them than we did going in. That's for sure.
I knew that about it. And here's the other thing is if that's the senior editor of a major daily newspaper in this country, if that's the quality, the intellect, the academia, the ability to converse, the ability to share thoughts, if that's the best they got, I mean, I shudder to think about the quality of journalism going forward in this country.
Yeah, but look, part of the problem is you don't, and I was discussing this with someone who used to work at the Post who I very much admire and respect. And we were saying, you know, there isn't this pipeline anymore the way there used to be of journalists where you would get trained, you'd get mentored, you'd get shown the ropes, you would sort of have your worst instincts pulled back, you'd get reined in, and eventually you would kind of find your level. What they do now is they throw young people kind of into the fire and see if they burn. And you know what really kind of gets people's attention in the right wing media ecosystem is, can you own the libs, right? And if you can own the libs, they will look past a lot of other deficiencies in how you think and the way you process information and your critical thinking skills.
So they're not hiring, but dude, that means they're not hiring journalists; they're just hiring operatives.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable statement of the situation. You know, I'm not saying that she's an operative per se, but it does feel like they are rewarding the ability to outrage people more than they used to, and less sort of rewarding track record of being an editor at a paper, for example, right? And I'm sure there are some folks who would spin this as well. It's democratizing media, and it's not, you know, there's no more gatekeepers. But this has always been my argument. Gatekeepers are good in a lot of situations. We need gatekeepers. Gatekeepers are helpful in many respects, and one of the respects is they show people how to do the job they're training for correctly, right? And there used to be really wonderful gatekeepers at the National Post, and they're all gone.
Same thing. It's the same thing with Bell, right? And the Polyev thing, same thing. It's just quality. It's not there. People are not, like Brian Lilly's a great example. That guy's not a fucking journalist. He's a conservative political operative who has pretended to be a broadcaster, pretended to be a newscaster. Now he's pretending to be a fucking journalist. To your point, I mean, you know, and again, the economy of media, it is not a good time. That is why someone like Terry is in a position that Terry is in. And in no way should some low-level blogger like me be able to run her show in 4 tweets. No way. But it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, that is the drain that, you know, I think all traditional media outlets are kind of circling at various speeds. Is, you know, as you have fewer resources, you have fewer people, you lose the best people, you bring in people that aren't ready for the situation or aren't experienced, they make mistakes, you lose more revenue, you lose more people, and on it goes. And like you said, that was the story of that bad edit at CTV. It wasn't because they were trying to fuck with Polyev. It wasn't malicious. It wasn't part of.
They had a couple greenhorns that used the wrong fucking clip. That's what happened.
Yeah, and people didn't communicate, and there wasn't someone overseeing it that you know was paid enough and had enough time to look at every clip before putting it into the newscast, the way they used to. And then of course, you know, it comes out, and the Conservatives weaponize it. They damage the media even more because that's what they want. And you have this kind of this accelerating drain on our media, and it's not good for most of us. It is good for conservative operatives and conservative politicians.
Well, the problem that I have today is that it's a race to the bottom. I'm just happy to hear to comment on it and make fun of the real weirdos that take part in it. So I really appreciate you shedding some light and kind of, you know, helping me walk through the polling stuff. Obviously, you know, it was weird. It was a weird couple of days when it comes to discourse. But I trust, you know, your judgment. And the National Observer is where you work. You're the lead columnist, Max Fawcett. Everybody should go and get a subscription to the National Observer. Really great accountable content, really easy to understand, and some really tremendous writers like Caroline Orr just does awesome work. You do awesome work. The entire group over there, they do great work. And it's not, it is mainstream, even though it's digital. ad company, or not a digital ad company, digital media company, but climate change, very real. Watching what's going on with Hurricane Milton, you need to be aware of the better angels in media and the National Observer, Max, Linda, the entire group over there, first rate. So really appreciate you kind of helping me break a few things down today. Where can people get a hold of you? Just at Max Fawcett on Twitter. Is that where you want them?
Just as long as I'm on Twitter, at Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky now, just in case Elon blows the whole thing up. And you can always find me at my National Observer email, which is max@nationalobserver.com. I have a special folder for all the trolls that send me their love letters. So
I know you like to publish those sometimes too. So,
yeah, I mean, if you send me something really dumb, I might just share it. Yeah,
with the email address too.
Well, I mean,
sometimes makes it up.
They have no right of privacy if they are, in my inbox wishing me ill harm.
I'm the same. That's why I published Angus's DMs yesterday. Thanks for doing this, dude. Really appreciate it.
Anytime. Happy to do it.
All right, buddy. Talk to you soon. Max Fawcett, ladies and gentlemen, National Observer, lead columnist. Good man. Thanks to Max Fawcett for spending some time with us. Again, Canada's National Observer, at Max Fawcett is where you can find him on Twitter. And you can find us pretty much anywhere. Crier Media is on YouTube. Crier Media is also online. criermedia.co or crier.co is where you can find us as well. All of our work is there, as well as all of our podcasts. And Lucky today, brought to you by our friends at Moment Mushrooms. Interested in helping people work through things and wellness for a very long time. My friends at Moment Mushrooms are the number one resource when it comes to understanding microdosing. If you're interested, go to momentmushrooms.com. Check them out today. And listen, educate yourself. This is a big, beautiful space. Again, massive proponent of psilocybin as a therapy. You should too. Some incredible studies coming out of Johns Hopkins University, Guelph, that suggests not only can mushrooms increase neuroplasticity in your brain, not only do they advance new neural networks in your mind, they also help you think differently. They put aside some of that negative perception as well, kind of like a reset. And you want to make sure you understand what you're doing. So join the Daily Mushroom again, dailymushroom.co, dailymushroom.co, the number one resource and newsletter when it comes to mushrooms, microdosing, etc. And they will be your Sherpas. Dailymushroom.co, momentmushrooms.com. Check them out online today. Thanks, Max. Thanks, y'all, for listening. Don't forget to rate, subscribe to the podcast as well. We really appreciate it. And have a wonderful day. We will be back tomorrow with Mr. Dave Troy. Keeps an eye on psychos in the United States. God, I love this job. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for paying attention.